pen and savoured the moment just before the tip of it hit the page, knowing once it made connection she wouldn't come up for air until Joni was up and forced her to pay her some attention. It was the kind of blissful trance that only came with doing something you truly loved. Her job at the Duchess, a cinema that showed old movies from eras gone by, brought her joy, yes, but it didn't come close to touching these moments. It's like that feeling you get when you're reading a good book, Lorelei had tried to explain to Joni one day. It almost hurts to stop reading, and then, when you do have to put it down, all you can think about is reading it, as if living your life is just getting in the way of that time you could be spending in the world someone else has created. Joni had nodded slowly, but Lorelei knew she'd zoned out at the first mention of reading. What ungodly hour were you up at this time? Joni yawned from the doorway, rubbing yesterday's makeup further into her eyes before stumbling towards the coffee machine. Joni's nightwear was all black and dark grey. Lorelei often joked they matched her black heart, but despite her wicked sense of humour and her often blunt delivery, Joni was the kindest person Lorelei knew. They had met at the Duchess and their friendship had been instant. It had only taken a few months before they decided becoming flatmates was a good idea, and they had swiftly found a place to share in Bromley. They were complete opposites, but they just worked. Where Lorelei was quiet, Joni was loud. Where Joni was a little naive, Lorelei had more life experience. They both loved nights out, cats, and agreed wholeheartedly that pineapple did not belong on a pizza. It was a match made in heaven. Lorelei blinked, realising only now just how sore her eyes were from staring at her notebook so intently. She turned to check the time on the kitchen clock. It was almost 7. Not that long ago, she lied. She nodded towards the coffee machine. I'll have one if you're making. You ever gonna let anyone read this one? Joni asked over her shoulder, pushing a piece of thick white bread down into the toaster. Maybe, Lorelei mumbled. Joni had attempted to have this conversation with her 1,000,000 times before, but Lorelei wasn't ready to share her writing with anyone, not even her mother. Lorelei had become an expert in swivelling her mother's attempts at conversations away from herself a long time ago. Someone as talented as you should not be stuck sweeping up popcorn for the rest of her life. I like sweeping up popcorn, Lorelei said with complete conviction. It was corny, probably the writer in her, but she felt that the spilled popcorn was proof that people had had a good time, and that's what she loved. Is it what you want to do forever, though? Joni asked. No, but I'm only 25. I have plenty of time to hone my craft and then send my work to film studios. It'll happen for me one day, I swear. Lorelei crossed her heart with the end of her pen. As long as it actually happens one day, I'm happy. Joni sipped her coffee, but then sniffed the air. Bollocks! She jumped over to the toaster just as her bread was in danger of becoming charcoal. Lorelei took the moment to rest her head on her arms, the weight of her lost sleep finally catching up with her and pressing against her temples. Was it a bad one? Joni asked gently, scraping the blackened crispy bits into the bin. Lorelei shrugged. She had always slept fitfully. Getting to sleep was never the issue. It was the nightmares. Brutal, twisted, terrorizing nightmares that would wake her up, soaked in sweat and in floods of tears. Joni was always nearby for some comfort and a cup of hot milk, or whiskey if Joni had her way, when they got bad enough that Lorelei needed company, someone to talk her down. But most of the time she dealt with the aftermath alone. Once awake, she stayed awake, not daring to close her eyes again and be consumed by the waves of terror once more. It had led to her love of writing all those years ago, but now the nightmares were getting worse, more vivid, more frequent. Do you think it means something? Joni asked, her voice still soft and kind. That they're suddenly getting worse now, when they've been manageable before. Lorelei shrugged again, but she knew in her gut it wasn't a coincidence. How could it be? For years, nightmares had plagued her, but the details faded almost instantly once she was awake.